The story begins with Madame de Volanges and Mertert arriving at a convent to visit de Volanges's daughter, Cécile. The young girl is there to learn how to properly live the life of a pure and virgin girl. She excitedly leaves her choir practice and rushes to greet her mother and Mertert. Cécile has heard that her mother is marrying her off, so she tries to confirm this with Mertert. Once she knows it's true, she asks her to find out who the man she'll be marrying is. Mertert tries to ask de Volanges about the guy's name, but she hides it from her as requested by Cécile's future husband. Instead, de Volanges asks Mertert to train Cécile and help her become an innocent, but wise girl with proper manners. In the evening, Mertert takes Cécile to an opera to start her training. During that time, the young girl encounters Viscount Valmont, and Mertert educates her on the proper ways of socializing with men. Cécile invites Valmont to watch the opera, but Mertert brings the man outside to talk. Mertert reveals Cécile is under her protection, and Valmont says he'll be leaving for the country to visit his elderly aunt, Madame de Rosemonde. Mertert returns to Cécile and tells her that Valmont is a man known for ruining pure girls' honor and that she should stay away from him. Confused, Cécile ends up asking if Valmont is her lover. Mertert tells the young girl it's inappropriate to ask a widow like her a question like that. Cécile then asks if she doesn't have a lover, to which she answers no. Later, Mertert spends the night with a man named Jurcourt. When he is about to leave, she asks him when they meet again. Jurcourt dodges the question, saying he'll be busy in the coming days and won't have time to meet with her. Several days later, the nobles have a gathering where Cécile will be singing and playing the harp. During that time, de Volanges introduces Mertert to Cécile's fiancé, and it's none other than Jurcourt. While both shocked, Mertert and Jurcourt hide their true relationship and pretend to meet each other for the first time. Mertert is offended by what she's learned and leaves the party. She later arrives in the country to visit Madame de Rosemonde, who seems to have fallen asleep during a card game. Elsewhere in the estate, Valmont is trying to woo a woman named Madame de Tourval, who is trying her best to be loyal to her husband. It seems her husband is a busy man who works in another city. De Tourval has no choice but to dutifully wait for him to return for her. Valmont confesses his love to the fine lady, but she refuses his advances. Valmont falls into the water and dramatically pretends that he is drowning. It frightens de Tourval and even Valmont's aide, who rushes to come and save him. When de Tourval notices that Valmont is only toying with her, she leaves. Valmont drops the charade and goes to save his aide, who apparently is drowning because he doesn't know how to swim. Mertert and Valmont meet, and she asks him to return with her to Paris. She wants revenge on Jurcourt and plans to use Valmont's professional womanizing services for the job. It seems she wants him to take Cécile's first time as a way to insult Jurcourt, who likes his wives to be innocent and pure. Although Valmont is flattered by the job offer, he refuses since he's already in love with Madame de Tourval. During dinner that evening, Mertert provokes de Tourval with some sensitive conversations. Eventually, the women get asked if they'd be willing to spend the night with Valmont. De Tourval doesn't answer the question, saying that loyalty and decency are very important to her. Mertert is surprised that Valmont is actually pursuing such a modest lady. She tells him to give up on the idea because he will never be able to land her. Confident with his womanizing skills, Valmont challenges Mertert to a wager. If he succeeds in sleeping with de Tourval, he wants Mertert to let him have his way with her. Mertert agrees, but in exchange, if Valmont fails, she wants him to enter a monastery and become a monk. Valmont also accepts. When Mertert returns to Paris, she meets up with de Volanges, who is upset with Cécile for keeping secrets from her. It turns out that de Volanges discovered her daughter was keeping love letters from his harp teacher, Danceny. Mertert offers her help and immediately talks to Cécile about the matter. Fully trusting her, Cécile runs downstairs to get her latest letter. Mertert hurries to watch where Cécile gets the letter and discovers it comes from her harp. She then starts manipulating the innocent Cécile to ruin her arranged marriage with Jurcourt. Mertert helps Cécile write her love letter for Danceny. She also tells de Volanges where the youngsters are hiding their love letters. De Volanges exposes the young couple's secret during their next harp class. She also kicks Danceny out of her house, which immensely upsets Cécile. To keep her insidious plan running, Mertert helps the young couple secretly get in touch. She even arranges a meeting for them on the night that she and de Volanges go to watch an opera. After Mertert and de Volanges leave that night, Cécile also leaves with the help of Mertert's servants. They take her to meet with Danceny and even give her a revealing outfit for the special occasion. When Danceny arrives, Mertert's servant leaves the room but secretly spies on the young couple. Instead of having a night of hot steamy love, Cécile and Danceny chose to continue with their harp lessons instead. De Volanges feels sorry for her daughter and decides to hurry home. Fearing that her plan may get exposed, Mertert hurries to fetch Cécile and bring her to the opera house. When de Volanges returns to the opera house later, she finds Cécile with Mertert and drops all her suspicions. Worried, de Volanges tells Mertert she's considering returning Cécile to the convent until her wedding day. Mertert says she's got a better idea and takes Cécile to the countryside. Valmont continues his quest to capture the heart of Madame de Tourval. He invites her to go hunting, but it's actually a ploy to lure her into a romantic date. He takes her to the garden, where he has prepared a romantic meal and hired musicians to play for them. De Tourvel is touched by what Valmont has done, but she isn't ready to surrender to his charms. She pulls out a letter from a friend who says that Valmont is nothing but an experienced womanizer known for ruining the honor of the women he targets. When she asks him if that is true, Valmont fails to defend himself. He simply declares that his feelings for her are sincere and leaves. He encounters Murtert and Cécile, who have just arrived to stay at the estate. Meanwhile, in Paris, Danceny tries out for Jurcourt's regiment. Unlike the other applicants, Danceny wields his sword well and gains the respect of Jurcourt. Fully knowing that he's facing the man who will wed his lover, Danceny rejects Jurcourt's invitation to join his regiment. Valmont entertains the ladies in the country house since he's the only man there. He spends time with Cécile, letting her enjoy a game of sword poking. De Tourvel watches him intently and asks Murtert for her opinion about him. Murtert says that she sees Valmont as her brother and that he's terrible husband material. Noticing that de Tourvel fancies Valmont, Murtert advises her to leave the estate as soon as possible. After an evening of somewhat senseless tiptoeing and hopping around to classical music, de Tourvel invites Valmont to her room. She admits she's fallen for him but asks him to leave the estate since she can't. Torn by her feelings, de Tourvel locks herself up in her room. Shortly after, Murtert asks Valmont to help Cécile write a love letter for Danceny, and he agrees. He goes to the young girl's room and helps her write the letter. At some point, Valmont decides to show Cécile the type of sword fighting he is famous for. Once the deed is done, Cécile hurries to Murtert and tells her about what happened. She tells her she's completely confused about her feelings and has no clue what to do. Murtert advises Cécile to marry Jurcourt and secretly take Danceny as her lover. Morning comes, and de Volanges arrives to pick up her daughter. Valmont calls her out for making Cécile marry a man who is much older than her. Things quickly get out of hand as the nobles argue, and in the end, they all ask for Cécile's opinion on the matter. The naive young girl says she will be Jurcourt's wife but wants to keep Danceny as her lover. De Volanges is outraged by her answer and wants to take Cécile back to Paris immediately. Valmont then learns that de Tourvel has left the country house and returned to Paris. So, he hurriedly leaves to meet her at her house. Touched that the man she loves went after her, de Tourvel succumbs to her feelings and sleeps with Valmont. In the morning, she tells Valmont that she has already told her husband about him and is now ready to be his woman. Valmont, on the other hand, is uneasy. While de Tourvel goes to the market to shop for food, Valmont flees, leaving only his farewell letter behind. When de Tourvel reads the letter and in it, Valmont says he made a mistake in thinking that he could change. He then wishes that de Tourvel would meet someone that truly deserves her. Valmont meets up with Murtert later and tells her he has won their wager. The lady refuses to honor their wager, which angers Valmont because it was a matter of honoring their bets. Murtert inappropriately provokes Valmont, making him angry. He declares war on her and throws her off her bath before leaving. Valmont decides to help Cécile and Danceny continue playing past the message. He offers to help the young girl write a letter, and she agrees as long as he doesn't poke her with his sword like last time. One day, while Valmont sneakily meets up with Cécile, Jurcourt arrives to give her an expensive necklace as a gift and says that the king will be present at their wedding. This makes the young girl have second thoughts about her plan to be with Danceny. Noticing this, Valmont changes his plans and tells Cécile to confess to Danceny about following Murtert's advice to marry Jurcourt and keeping the young lad as her lover. The message gets on Danceny's nerves. He goes to Murtert's home to threaten her to write Cécile an apology letter for her bad advice. Later that night, Valmont's servant informs him that Madame de Tourvel is outside, wet in the rain, waiting for him to invite her into his house. Feeling pity, Valmont invites her in, and they spend a steamy night together. When he wakes up in the morning, Valmont learns that de Tourvel left him, just like what he did to her before. He buys flowers and visits her at her house but leaves after seeing it's a mess and that her husband is there. Valmont then visits Murtert, hoping to patch things up between them. Murtert seems to agree and even confesses her feelings for him. However, it was just another ploy as she suddenly revealed she was just playing with him. Murtert opens her room and reveals Danceny in her bed and that she actually told him about Valmont taking Cécile's first time. Infuriated, Valmont slaps her in the face and leaves. In an attempt to salvage the situation, Valmont buys men's clothes and heads to Cécile's house. Once there, he tells the young girl to put on the clothes so they can run away. To his surprise, Murtert arrived there first and had already manipulated Cécile not to believe him. Madame de Volanges arrives with her guards and asks Valmont to leave. When he arrives home, Valmont encounters Danceny's aides, who inform him that the young man has challenged him to a duel. Valmont goes to a tavern that night and hires 3 drunks to be his witnesses for the duel. After a night of drinking, Valmont arrives drunk at the duel. Danceny recognizes that his opponent cannot fight properly and thinks it's below him to push on with the duel. The young man tells Valmont to simply apologize, and he will forgive him. The statement enrages Valmont, who believes he tried everything he could to help the young lovers and doesn't need to apologize for anything. He then attacks Danceny while the drunk witnesses leave, and his servant covers his eyes. In the end, Danceny takes Valmont's life in self-defense. During Valmont's funeral, all the women that love him have come to pay their respects, except for Madame de Tourvel. Cécile talks to Madame de Rosemonde and reveals she's carrying Valmont's child, and the old lady happily hugs her. Sometime later, Cécile gets married to Jurcourt. Everyone is in a happy mood except for Madame de Mertert, who is alone and envious that everyone else in attendance is with their partners. At the cemetery, Madame de Torval visits Valmont's grave. The movie ends after she says goodbye to the man she loves and leaves with her husband.